Okay, the name of this story is Sonic Stuck Sneeze. And I just want to warn you, I wrote this story in November of 2017, so it's a little rough around the edges, but I hope you enjoy it anyway. So, here we go. Sonic sniffled a couple of times as his nose twitched. He brought one of his hands up to rub his nose, but it became clear that this wasn't working. A few moments later, his hand slipped away from his nose as his breath began to hitch. Ah! Sonic tilted his neck back slightly as his nose continued to twitch. He was pretty sure that he was going to sneeze. Ah! Ah! Just when he thought he was going to let it out, however, he didn't. A short time after the final inhale, the annoying itch simply burned away from his nose, taking the sneeze with it. Sonic opened his eyes, his neck returning to its normal position. Ugh. Sonic sniffled again and rubbed his nose, as though he did sneeze. This had been happening to him for a good majority of the day. Whenever he least expected it, an intense tickling sensation made its way into his nose and made him need to sneeze. But whenever he thought he was finally going to let it out, it faded at the last moment. Not only was it annoying as heck, he couldn't even figure out why it was happening in the first place. He didn't focus on that, however. He just wanted to get that pesky sneeze out of him already. Sonic? The sound of a familiar voice snapped him out of his thoughts. He turned his head to the side and saw that Amy was looking at him. She had heard him lose his sneeze. Sonic could only blush in embarrassment, something he rarely did in front of anyone he knew. Unfortunately for Sonic, Amy had been begging him to go on a date with her on the exact same day that he had been having this stuck sneeze. And he had accepted, just so he could get her off his back for a while afterward. Since then, Sonic had been trying not to sneeze in front of Amy. Up to this point, the fact that he couldn't sneeze wasn't really a problem, mostly because he didn't like doing it in front of others, let alone her. Now, however, his stuck sneeze was returning to torment him with false starts but no release. Are you feeling okay? Amy asked, innocently. At first, Sonic didn't know how to respond. He really didn't want to admit what was really going on with him. But the familiar sneezy itch that had been torturing him was slowly returning to his nose, causing it to twitch slightly. He sniffled slightly, trying not to make it sound too audible, but it didn't seem to help. Actually, Amy, Sonic started, but before he could say much more than that, his breath started to hitch. Sonic immediately held his forefinger under his nose, trying not to sneeze in front of Amy. His nose continued to shiver as he tried not to inhale, but a few hitched gasps slipped out. Deep down, Sonic was begging himself not to sneeze, but this time around it seemed like he was finally going to sneeze. He turned his head away from Amy as he pulled his forefinger away from his nose. He waited for the sneeze to come forward, fearing the worst. Unbeknownst to the sneezy hedgehog, Amy was actually looking intrigued. As much as she was attracted to Sonic, she couldn't really remember a time when he had to sneeze while he was right in front of her. And she thought it was pretty cute to see him needing to sneeze like this. Once again, the sneeze disappeared, and Sonic's breath returned to normal, to his dismay. To be honest, Amy was kind of disappointed as well, but she knew what she had to do. Ugh, not again, Sonic said to himself, rubbing his slightly itchy nose. Noticing that Amy had been watching him the entire time, he sweated a little and apologized. Sorry, Amy. I keep having to sneeze, but I just can't do it. Amy blushed slightly the moment she heard him say that. Oh, really? Yeah. Sonic looked away for a brief moment. Would you like me to help you sneeze? Sonic's eyes widened in disbelief when she asked that. There was no way that she could have actually said that. But Sonic really wanted to let the sneeze out, and he was pretty sure that Amy just wanted to help him. He decided he didn't have a choice in the matter. Sure, go for it, he finally said. He didn't know how she would make him sneeze, but he didn't know what to expect. Okay, Amy replied. She then reached into her dress pocket and pulled out a feather. Just thinking about what she was going to do with this made her smile. It's not like this could actually work, Sonic thought to himself. Amy raised the feather to Sonic's nose and wiggled it back and forth a few times. Almost as soon as she started, Sonic's nose started to tickle intensely. His eyes widened and twitched slightly as his irises shrunk. He could feel a sneeze returning. If she could just keep going with this, maybe he'd finally be able to do it. Ah, Sonic inhaled, trying not to move his neck so that Amy could keep tickling his nose. Ah. Amy blushed and giggled as she continued to tickle Sonic's nose. All she was doing was stroking the soft feather around his cute black nose, but she could tell that he really had to sneeze. Just watching his reaction and listening to his inhales were enough to turn her on. By that I meant make her happy. She could seriously bet that the upcoming sneeze would turn her on even more. You know, I can't blame Amy for this. I, too, would tickle Sonic's nose with a feather to make him sneeze. Ah! Sonic suddenly tilted his neck as far back as possible, his nose quivering in furious irritation. The sneeze was about to finish him off. At the last moment, he turned away from Amy and took a final inhale. Ah! Achoo! Sonic doubled over as he finally released the sneeze, and a small amount of saliva came spraying out of his mouth. Amy winced a little as she heard the sneeze, but she blushed as well. It turned her on so much. A short time afterward, Sonic tilted his neck back slightly, needing to sneeze again. Achoo! This second sneeze was considerably more satisfying than the last. Recovering from the sneezes, Sonic sniffled and rubbed his nose with his forefinger. It looked absolutely adorable, and caused Amy to blush a bright red. Those two sneezes were absolutely beautiful. "Bless you, Sonic-oo," she said. "Thanks." Sonic continued to rub his nose. "And thanks for getting those out for me, Ames." "You're welcome," Amy replied as she winked at Sonic, who blushed a little in response. Sonic just couldn't believe what had happened. Amy, the girl who he had been trying to avoid for years, had helped him let out a stuck sneeze that had been pestering him for over half the day. It seemed almost unimaginable, but Sonic was still glad that she helped him out, because now he didn't have to worry about it. Maybe this was one more reason not to reject her affection. And that's the end of the story. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. At some point, I'm going to do a remake of this story because I know it's not that good, but it was like 5 years ago, so I don't really know what you should expect. Another thing, I can't blame Amy for wanting to tickle Sonic's nose with a feather to make him sneeze, but if this was one of my newer Sonic stories, I don't think it would make him sneeze that hard. In at least one of my other Sonic stories, Sonic has his nose tickled by a feather, and it does make him sneeze, but he's like, shoot. I don't know. I guess I don't think a couple little tickles would be enough to make him sneeze really loud anymore. Though the part where Amy was actually tickling Sonic's nose was definitely my favorite part. Could you tell? But again, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this, and feel free to check out my other videos if you want to.